Okay, how is everyone tonight? Today is Wednesday, November 14th. Currently is 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And welcome to the second session of Mod 12, Week 1, DES109 Graphic Design. If you were unable to tune in on Monday or watch the recorded session, my name is Melissa Kinney. I'm going to be your instructor this mod. And let's dive right in today. Okay, so we're going to start off today with just a very, very quick review of a couple of things that I went over on Monday. Just a couple reminders in order to be successful in the class. Then we're going to move on a little bit, just a basic background on graphic design and being a graphic designer. Then we'll kind of dive into a demo of the assignment that's due this week. And then just a couple of tips on how to complete your assessment. Now, the recorded lectures, the pre-recorded lectures that are there in the live session and the course media links are super, super important to be successful in this particular class. Watch them, take some notes. The narrator, Lisa Hammershine, excuse me, is really great at explaining everything. She goes nice and slow, but not too slow. Gives you a good background for what you are doing in the readings and what you're going to be doing actually in the assignments. Number two, the successful students in this class, watching these live sessions, whether you're attending them live or watching the recordings before you start your assignments. Every once in a while, we're going to be including things, or maybe more than once in a while, that we'll be including things that are going to be helpful or necessary in order to complete those assignments. Next, check over the week's work before you get started. That's going to help you really plan things out and try to pace yourself. It's really necessary, so you make sure that you don't end up with a ton of work on Saturday that you didn't realize was going to take you so much time, and then end up with late assignments and whatnot. Check the announcements at least 5 times a week. I don't know that I am pushing for 5 times a week, but just please check them every other day. Probably is at least best. That's how I'm going to be communicating with you folks. So when we have issues like yesterday, I did have a couple of people message me that they were getting ready to watch the live session. My internet unfortunately had gone down, and Comcast was not able to get back out to me until today. So I was unable to get that squared away, and unfortunately I have children, so I wasn't able to leave the location and try to do it elsewhere. Hence the reason we are doing the lecture tonight. As I'm hoping that the announcements were read by everybody. Excuse me, my allergies are playing tricks on me, and I just went to sneeze and then it decided not to. So number 5, make sure you do those daily checkpoints. There is a minimum that you have to do and get correct. Any extra that you happen to do is just extra credit, which is always helpful. You know, it could mean the difference between a failing grade and a passing grade, or a B and an A. So make sure to do those. Those videos, they're super quick. I think most of them, if not all of them, were actually under 5 minutes long. They're very informative. The quizzes are super quick and easy. So just make sure you get to do those as well. I do believe some people have actually already been working on those, which is great. If you haven't, make sure to take a look at those. Fully participate in the discussions. I know lots of people have already been participating in that, which is wonderful. Those first posts are due tonight at midnight. The responses are due Saturday at midnight, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know the bunch of you a bit more. Because my internet was down yesterday, I wasn't able to participate as much as I wanted to, so I'll be able to do that tonight and can't wait to read those discussions. Oh, it looks like we actually have someone tonight. Hi, Barbara. How are you? Barbara, can you hear me? Okay, well, I'm gonna hope that you can hear me, Barbara. And if you can, oh, great, we have a yes, I can. Wonderful. Okay, well, we were just going over just a few things. Just a little bit of a review. Excuse my dog. A little bit of a review from Monday. I think I was at number 6 for successful students in this class, the few things that they do. Excuse me, we just finished going over the discussions. Number 7, reading the background information and submission instructions carefully. There are going to be minute details in there we want to make sure that we get to. And I think, if I remember correctly, I think this slide, yep, I had a duplicate of number 7 by accident, and I had prepared this on Monday, so I had forgotten to change that. Watching the demonstrations and the examples in the live sessions like tonight. Submitting work on time. It just makes things so much easier because then you don't have to worry about catching up. Contact the instructor, that's me, if you have any questions or if you run into problems or delays. Utilize the multi-sessions. We're going to have our first one tomorrow afternoon. Actually, I guess it's early afternoon for most of you. It'll be mid-afternoon for me. Also, the class coach in the SSC for help and feedback, our class coach, Christy Paulson, is wonderful. Her schedule is in the announcements. So feel free to give her a call if you miss the multi-session, you can't reach me, which I am going to make sure that you can reach me. But number 11 just goes right back to the earlier excuse me, notation of making sure that you start your week early and then pace yourself. Okay, Barbara, were you able to actually watch any of the session from Monday, or either of the pre-recorded lectures? Great, you just finished it. Wonderful. So this is going to be really fresh in your memory. Awesome. Okay, so just another quick review of the required lectures. The pre-recorded sessions, 1 each week. They're 2 hours long. Watch before you do your assignments, because like I said, it's going to give you a nice foundation for the information that you're going to need for your assignments. It's going to make so much more sense because it'll be the live sessions and the assignments are going to be referring to stuff in those pre-recorded sessions. Take notes. It's so much easier to refer back to it if sometimes if it's on in your own writing. And break it up if you need to. If you only have a half an hour, it's very, very easy to watch a half an hour real quick, go have some dinner, come back, watch another half hour, whatever you got to do. And I know we all have busy schedules, we're all working and everything, so that might actually be the best thing for you. The live sessions, 2 each week, 1 hour each, typically on Monday nights and Tuesday nights. We did have that issue last night, but we are going to continue going forward with Monday and Tuesday nights, 6:30 p.m. Mountain Time. The Monday we'll go over the week and do some critiques of the work, and do some give some tips on the assignments and whatnot. And then on Tuesday we'll do some demos and dig a little deeper into those. So now, what you guys have all been waiting for, what is graphic design? Here's a little overview. The art or skill of combining text and pictures for use in any visual medium for advertising, magazines, logos, etc. And we've got a ton of examples here, and this is nowhere near all of them. I have been doing this a little over almost 15 years now, and I myself, just by myself, have worked in a number of other media than is listed here. So that, I mean, there is just, it's everywhere. The pre-recorded lecture even mentions that we live in a world of design, and I can't agree more. So from road signs to technical schematics, which we have a typo in there I'm going to have to fix. Technical schematics you wouldn't think would be actually involved in graphic design, but it totally is when you think about the instructions for your new iPod, for how to assemble your toddler's bed. Someone has to draw those things up. Someone has to lay out the text. So those are great examples as well. From inter-office memos, reference manuals, graphic design enhances the transfer of knowledge and visual messages. Readability and legibility is enhanced by improving the visual presentation and layout of text. Think of how incredibly difficult it would be to absorb information or to focus on your textbooks, handouts maybe from your doctor, or you know, entertainment. If the title of your next movie poster is too tiny, it's not going to jump out at you. You're not going to want to watch it. I mean, all of these different things, the text jumps out at you, the graphics grab your attention, and if they're not laid out in an appropriate manner using the principles of graphic design, then they're not effectively communicating their message. Barbara, would you, where else might you have seen some graphic design that maybe we haven't mentioned here yet? Okay, I can maybe think of maybe another couple of examples, maybe in some kind of promotional products. Maybe an organization such as Independence University is getting mugs printed out so that they can sell in the school store. So literally it is just everywhere. Just a couple of slides here on different programs. Some of you watching may have already taken the courses in these programs, but for those of you that maybe haven't taken them in a while, or maybe have yet to take them, here's just a little background. And oh, yep, Barbara, you say you've seen those mentioned, and yes, it's everywhere. It really, really, really is. I mean, even in these slides, it's evident. So talking a little bit about Photoshop. Photoshop is a graphics and photo editing program that was created by none other than Adobe, and everyone, that's like a household name these days. It's pixel based, excuse me, and they create raster images. My goodness, I'm so sorry. I keep going to sneeze. And usually used for creating web graphics and photo editing. Raster images are bitmap images. They contain a grid of pixels. Those are those little teeny squares of color or of information that all come together to make an image. So when someone says it's pixelated, it means that you can actually see those tiny squares. And the more pixels, the higher the resolution, the higher the quality, because you can no longer see those pixels. Here's actually a great example. The verses on the left is a pixelated image. You can see the individual squares. On the right is what's called a vector image. And vector programs like Adobe Illustrator, they create vector graphics, and vector is made up, they are actually images that are made out of paths. It draws an object's outline or shape, and they actually use a mathematical algorithm to size the images. So you can size this versus exponentially as large as you want, and it will not lose its quality. The versus on the left, the raster image, however, is the complete opposite, and the bigger it gets, the worse the quality is going to use. Most logos are created in a vector format, or created for a vector format, for this reason, the fact that you can change it and actually edit it without losing the quality. Adobe Illustrator is also part of the Creative Suite, which is now on the Creative Cloud. One of probably one of the two most popular programs. And what we will be mainly working in this course is Adobe InDesign. That's a desktop publishing application, also in Adobe. It's used mainly for layouts with a lot of typography, such as newsletters and posters, brochures. You can import images from Photoshop and Illustrator. It does not lose its quality as long as you have the correct format. So if I want to make a giant billboard, as long as I'm using a vector image, it's absolutely fine. A Photoshop file, it would need to be a very, very, very large image, obviously without losing its quality. So now the principles of design. The pre-recorded lectures touch on this and actually go in much deeper detail than we're going to here, but this is just kind of a basic overview. The basic elements of design are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And as my note suggests, yes, you read that acronym correctly. I maybe a little unprofessionally like to think to myself, as if I don't follow these four basic elements, CRAP, that's exactly what is going to be produced in my artwork, which I obviously would like to make sure that that does not happen. Contrast essentially means change, or differences, differences in size, color, direction, typeface, weight. These all kind of focus your eye on individual things, kind of moves your eye throughout the design. And here are some differences. We have obviously the one image in each of these examples that contrasts from the rest, obviously stands out, kind of makes your eye jump to it. You have the larger block here, the other three are identical. The diagonal lines over here have a very stark difference with the blocks next to them, as does the shape here. You have the rounded circles, and the square almost kind of feels a lot more sharp or a lot more pointy right next to the circles. The orientation, where this block right here is just a little askew, almost feels like it's ready to fall off of a ledge that these others have made. This position, the line that's over here, it's kind of jutting out a little bit. Looks like a piano key that maybe is up or maybe is broken and needs to get taken out. But your eye definitely gets drawn over here. And then the color over here as well, the yellow against the black, it makes it really stand out. The next one, repetition. Repetition represents consistency within the design. It kind of brings a design together. Also makes your eye kind of move throughout the design, but in a different way. We repeat the elements so that the design is cohesive, and like I said, it all kind of makes one cohesive, one sticking together kind of design, like that they all belong together, and if you were to take any of it out, it feels like it's missing something. Typeface, size, color, leading, etc. Are used consistently to create visual unity and harmony within a design. And like I said, it almost feels like it's missing something when it's not used appropriately. So we have, for example, this brochure, magazine layout, whatever you want to call it. This most likely is a cover, or it could be a previous page, I suppose. And then you open up the inside layout, and we have these polygon images that are repeated throughout the entire layout. And even though they're in different angles, the color scheme is kind of repeated, so it kind of all feels like it goes together. If these colors maybe were, I don't know, an orange and a dark blue, it would almost feel like someone else was maybe advertising in this particular print, and that this was someone else, you know, a different advertisement. Excuse me. If you look at we have these almost like little headlines as well that are kind of blocked in. This larger type is pretty consistent as well. These kind of jump out at you a little bit more than your paragraph text. So that particular style is also repetitive throughout this layout. The next principle of design is alignment. Alignment is especially important because it actually creates order. The slide here says it helps balance your image so that it's visually appealing. If you have things that are not aligned properly, whether it's left justified, right justified, center justified, then if it is not aligned properly, it looks very chaotic. It can be very difficult to read. It can be very difficult to even look at. So the alignment is especially important to create balance, to create order, to allow your eye to settle in on a particular area. We have a couple different examples right here. Horizontal alignment, where we have the, actually, ironically enough, the vertical lines that kind of all make it look like it's going this way. We have vertical alignment here, where the vertical line right here, it's all, I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my, I accidentally clicked on that, and I was kind of, I had a little bit of a brain fart there. I apologize. And I'm not finding the way to go back there. So we're just going to move on. We have the edge. So we have the edge of this word is actually right against the corner of these lines right here. The center, we have the paragraph text and the heading. We're matching up the centers. Right over here, we actually have a couple of different examples. This is all left aligned, okay? However, this is aligned in two completely different ways. Right here, we can see the side of the V is actually aligned with the paragraph text exactly. But sometimes, especially with a script that has kind of like a slant to it, sometimes that can still feel a little funny. So the designer on this particular one has actually, very, very technical term, scooched the word over just a little bit, because this actually would make your eye look at it. It would make your eye a little bit more calm. I know that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, but when you see something that's not aligned properly, it absolutely makes sense. Excuse me. Right here, we have some text that the focus is jumping right to it because it's not aligned with the rest of it. Okay, now the principles of design. The next one is proximity. And the design principle proximity talks about the area around a group of elements and how they can be viewed as a whole simply by the amount of space that might be in between them. If you look on the left-hand side here, this is all, you know, spaced out nice and neatly, but it doesn't seem to really make a ton of sense. We have a website here, we have a phone number here, we have part of an address here and part of an address here. By right aligning these items and kind of grouping them together in the way that we have here. We have Joe's Graphics. Automatically, you see the address, and those two items are grouped together, so your eye is going to put those two together. A little bit of space kind of makes the card a little bit more interesting. And then you have the phone number and the website here. So even though we have a lot of empty space right here, it doesn't look off balance because of the layout. And here is another example of proximity. Excuse me. Or two examples. We have the paragraph text in this book along with the photographs. There is a very good chance, although I cannot read this because it is too tiny, there's a very good chance that this text is going to be related to this picture because of their proximity to each other. Additionally, the blocks of text are, they're obviously right next to each other, so your eye is immediately going to go left to right, left to right, left to right, down, and right over here, left to right, down. This, unfortunately, is not a good example of having a caption. I wish that this actually had a little caption of the picture in addition to the paragraph text, because that would actually be another great example. Your eye wouldn't automatically go from the paragraph text over to the caption, because the way that they like to line those things up in magazines, in books, in textbooks, and that kind of thing, they typically will place them near or on top of the image to create proximity. And similarly, for the image over here, you have the information, excuse me, about the movie right here, and it looks like most of it's actually in German. But notice how not all the text, it's not one just big large block of text, just like the paragraph text here. It's broken up a little bit by the spacing, essentially by category, what the information contains. Okay, so now here is an example that I'm sorry, Barbara, I'm going to be using you today. Could you give me an example of contrast in this particular poster here? We have The Dark City, created by Alex, or starring Alex Proess. I can't even read this. It's just so tiny. See, and this is a good example of low resolution images, a raster image. Barbara, can you give me any examples? A contrast with the colors, perfect example. We have a very stark contrast with the bright orange against the black background, and same thing with the black background and the yellow stars. Although I hate using this word in the industry, they really pop, but they stand out. Same thing with the text here. Yep, good. You actually already pointed that out too. I'm sorry I didn't see that pop up. So there's definite contrast with the text. We have the large title right here. And like I said, I can't read this if this is created by or starring or what, but obviously this particular name is much more prominent. It's much more important than the other names. Although maybe these people down here would beg to differ. Repetition, we have the typeface is very similar. Pretty much it's consistent all the way through. It just so happens that there's a different weight here. This probably looks like it's a bold, or yeah, that's probably a bold, and then this is probably a medium and a book right here. And some repetition in the windows here. Most of them look pretty similar. Alignment, it's all pretty center aligned. Very nice, actually. I like the way, because it's a hanging light bulb. It kind of goes from the top right to the bottom, and your eye just goes whoosh, right all the way down. And proximity, how about that one, Barbara? Is there any particular example that jumps out at you of proximity in this particular poster? Maybe the stars, that's a perfect example. Yes, if you notice, they're not really all on top of each other. They're not exactly equidistant from each other. but they create a nice balance. I almost feel like if I took this one away right here, that there would be too much of a line going on down here, and I would feel like something was missing. So that's a great one. And I would actually probably even have maybe taken this whole thing with the text and maybe just nudged it down just a little bit. I feel like there's too much space here, but that's not what the designer did. That was an artistic choice. And so now, oops, my demo just stopped, or my PowerPoint just stopped, but that's not a problem because that was actually the last slide, I think. Let me see. I'm just going to double check and make sure that I had that, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. All right, let's open this back up. Excuse me while I just scroll right through here. This was actually part of yesterday's Mondays. So I don't mean to make everybody so dizzy. Just want to make sure that we got everything. Yes, okay, we did. Like I said, just wanted to make sure. So now we're on to our demo. Okay. Get started here. Oop, that's not the right one. It is on the wrong screen. There we go. Now, so for this assignment, we are going to be doing flashcards. So what you want to do is go to week 1's assignment. You can get there. Make sure that I'm in the right course. Yes, I am in the right course. You can get here by the quick links right here. Go to assignment, not assessment. I have an itchy trigger finger over here today, apparently. There we go, assignment. You can also go to the modules. I think that this particular one is just that much easier. Okay, so you want to make sure you read the background. Talks about history and learning from history and how important it is. How it can, excuse me, give you an understanding of communication through visual design. What you are going to start by doing, we have our prompt right here. Start by downloading this document, which I have already downloaded, and I will show you right here. Here. This has all the specs and a couple of resources for your flashcards. We're actually going to, I'm going to show you the benchmarks that we looked at the other day. Okay. We have the example image on the right-hand side here, and we have the information on the left-hand side. You do not necessarily have to set it up that way. That is a choice that you can make as the designer. We have another example right here. Okay. Oop, come on, scroll down. There we go. This is the back of that particular psychedelic one. Okay. This one kind of flip-flopped it. Actually, I think the one previously did too. Yep, we have the text on the right, image on the left. Go back this way again. Image on the left, excuse me, image on the right, text on the left. So you are going to be taking, there we go, this information right here. We have 10 different graphic design eras. You get to pick 3 different ones. And we have right here an overview. This gives kind of like a basic overview that it doesn't really go too in depth. So you might want to just breeze through this particular article and then go from there, figure out which one kind of speaks to you, and then maybe do a little bit more research on which one you kind of like, or which ones you kind of like, since you're going to need to do 3. Okay. Then you're going to be following, there we go, we're going to be following the prompt of your assignment and making sure it contains this information right here. The name of the era, the general date or the time of the era, the picture, a picture that's representative of the piece, title of the piece if it's available. Sometimes it might not be available if, you know, if there's some signage or maybe a magazine cover or that kind of thing. It might not have a title. You know, try to do the best that you can there. Creator, artist of the picture of the design piece, if you can find it. Again, it could be a little bit difficult to find, but that sometimes that can actually give you a little bit more of a background of the piece. Minimum of 50 words, summarizing the key elements of the era. What you might actually want to do is actually do your research first and put this together in a Word document. You can make sure you copy this, and I am actually creating a new document. Boom. As you go, and I actually probably would do this. 2, 3, maybe even number them up top. 1, 2, and 3, not 2. And I would actually replace them as I go. So let's go Victorian and grunge and Art Deco, just as an example. Make sure that you have every single one of these bullets simply by replacing the information. One of the good things, or one of the benefits of actually doing this in Microsoft Word, after you save it, of course, you want to make sure you don't lose your work, is you can do a word check. Make sure that you absolutely have the 50 words that you need in the in your description. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Okay, so in addition to the 50 words, you also would be giving some kind of design application that you might be using this style for. So, you know, what might your client be asking you to create that you would think about using this particular style for? Is it for a restaurant menu? Is it for a movie poster? Is it for a social media banner for an organization that's having a Mardi Gras night? Just anything in particular that you can think of that this era might be applicable for. On the back, you are going to be using and creating a color scheme that represents that image, that area, and citations for the content. Okay, we need to make sure that we know where the information that you are describing or that you are explaining, we need to know where that information came from. As well, and that goes for the actual image as well, not just the content. So we are just going to go. We're going to get started, and actually, I am going to switch screens because my where are you? New share. Here we go. My InDesign is on my other screen. Okay. Oh, and apparently they closed out on me while I was talking. So we'll go over this a little bit more while we're waiting. I apologize for that. So actually, you know what? I can actually go over a couple other things before we do that. For those of you that either may be having difficulty with InDesign, maybe feel like it takes you a little bit too long, not a problem. We have help on the web, obviously. This I've actually printed out before. A lot of these shortcuts I know off the top of my head now, but it was insanely helpful when I first started out. These are all keyboard shortcuts, both for Windows and for Mac. I am on a PC. I know a lot more designers use Mac than they do PCs, but I have learned in my industry and in my individual work that I keep a PC at home because a lot of larger offices use Macs, and then I don't lose that information no matter where I'm working. So you can print this out and figure, oh, wait a minute, what did I want to do? Oh, I wanted to find the gradient tool. You type in G, see, it's the same for both. The gradient tool pops right back up so that you don't have to, and it's not ready yet, so that you don't have to go up to the toolbar or up to the ribbon, go window, gradient, have the thing open up. Even just those 2 moves can be very, very tedious. The zoom tool is another one. I love that one. You don't have to go into your toolbox and find the magnifying glass. Zooming in, zooming out. These are all incredibly, incredibly helpful. And after using them just a couple of times, it becomes, second nature. You don't even have to think about it anymore. So we actually, it looks like I'm good. So I'll make sure that I post this in the announcements because it's incredibly helpful. You can also actually specify some. So if there's a particular shortcut in here that you don't care for, you can change it. I've done that before because I use a couple of different vector programs. So I've actually kind of modified both that program and Illustrator to be the same keystrokes. And again, it's incredibly time saving. So we will go, oh, here we go. Okay, now my workspace might look a little bit different. It is the update, the most recent version of the cloud, but I don't like the dark interface. So I'm used to the older one, so I like to lighten it up a little bit. So we're going to start out by creating a new document, and the assignment for the flashcards is 5 by 7. You can do it portrait or landscape. Like I mentioned, does not matter either way. That is completely your choice. What you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure that this is set up in inches. If it is not, I can show you how to change that as well. I'm actually going to make this 7 by 5 because I want to do it horizontal. That's just your own choice. I'm also going to do facing pages so that it looks like a booklet. I'm going to have one on this side, one on this side, so that I have the front and the back right together. And I'm actually, I was going to also mention one other thing, but I will actually show you before I do that. Because I don't have a second page yet. We're going to add a page. We go to Layout, Pages, Add Page. Now, if you notice, I have this second one up here instead of right next to it. That's a default, and it's incredibly annoying. But if you notice, I added one more page, and it's right next to each other, okay? In InDesign, like I said, this is a default. I'm actually going to go back into, where is it? You're going to have to bear with me just for a second. There we go. That's a keystroke that I just knew off the top of my head. Couldn't remember where to find this. That happened to be Control-Alt-P, which is probably Command-Alt-P on the Mac, or Command-Option-P. Option-P. I'll have to look that one up. Unfortunately, sometimes my fingers know to do it, and my mind is a little bit behind. So now we have 1, 2, 3 pages. A little workaround here to kind of get rid of this guy so that we're only working with the facing pages is to have this start at page number 2. So we're going to do that and hit OK. And there we go. Now, I believe the only reason I have this third page right here is because I just haven't created another one to fill in here. So now I am going to bring in my image by doing File, Place, and I'm going to, I'm going to find my folder, which, there we go, assignment. I don't know if you are paying attention to how I'm doing this, but it's insanely important. I use the word insanely a lot, and I didn't really notice that until just now. It's very important, let me say that instead, to make sure that you're organized. It's going to make your life a lot easier if you have things organized by folders. As you may have noticed, I have the live lecture, I have session 1, session 2. Do that with your assignments. I recommend you do that with your assignments. You see assignment 1, I have my image. These are the benchmarks, there were examples. This is all just assignment 1 stuff. It will make your life a lot easier to have your root folder for your class kind of go by week, and then by either assignment, discussion, assessment. It'll really make things a lot easier to find in the long run. And, oh, that's not what I want. Okay, so now after I have placed my image, okay, I'm going to just increase the size just a little bit. And, whoops, I have filled out my, my bounding box here. And again, I'm using all shortcuts here. But I absolutely can go over any of these things in my multi-session if there are questions on how to resize something proportionally, how to resize something not proportionally, what tools to use. I can definitely help. I know that Christy Paulson can help. So we can definitely go into a little bit more detail there, but I wanted to try to get as much done as possible on this demo, and we're almost running out of time. So I'm going to have my image here, go to my text, and I'm going to create a text box. Now, I am just putting together a little bit of text. Now, this particular image is from the grunge era. The gentleman's name was David Carson that I looked up. I could not find the date of this particular magazine. The only thing I could find was that it was the 50th anniversary cover for a ray gun. And I'm sure I could have gone back and found that information, but that's a little less important than trying to make sure that I get you guys this information. So I would probably, go back to the bullets that I had copied. And let me find it. Here we go. And we'll go to the grunge one because that was where I had started. And I would start reformatting this. General, grunge era. And I would probably be getting rid of, excuse me, my darn thing was taking too long. Start taking these bullets out simply because the formatting when I brought it in was a little tricky. I would probably work on the proximity first by increasing some of the leading here. General dates, time span of error. Okay, so each one of these are the individual bullets. I don't want, for example, this line right here to kind of run into this line. Okay, and I think I actually would also like to use a grungy kind of font. I think I know just the one. If I can remember the name of it. Let's see, Urban Jungle. Okay, we're going to increase the size of that a little bit, and oh, looks like I need to give that a little bit more space. Now this is kind of a funky font. So I'm actually going to make the rest of this, I think, kind of, I'm not even sure what I want to do. But you know what? This actually brings us to one of the other resources I wanted to show you folks, which is, I actually have two of them. Adobe fonts, this is also another link that I'll share with you guys. With the Creative Cloud subscription, you can look up all sorts of different fonts. And you shouldn't have to pay any extra for it. You've got information on how it works, you activate them, boom, you've got a whole bunch of different kinds of fonts you can use. DeFont is also another website that I will also share for you. This is probably one of my favorites because there's a lot of free stuff on here, and the way that it's organized is awesome. So if I wanted to look for something, excuse me, grungy, I would probably look for something that was distressed, trashy, I guess. Not really what I was looking for, but you never know. Sometimes that might be what you want. I think I'm going to actually go with eroded. Let's see what comes up there. Oh, and this must be where I got it. And these are really awesome because you can actually type in your text and preview it, and boom, it shows up. Oh, I actually love that one. I probably should have used that one. See, and there you go. I found something new that I don't have in my current collection. And that would be a ton of fun to use. These are just, these are awesome tools to look in. So now what I would personally do with my own, a good rule of thumb, and this does not necessarily apply to everything. A good rule of thumb is, in a particular layout, try to strive for somewhere between 1 and 3 fonts. If there's a lot of text, let's say if we were doing this for a magazine layout, having 3 different fonts is not a big deal. You want to maybe try to do something fancy or bold for headlines, and then maybe some kind of sans serif font, something a little bit more plain like Helvetica or Arial to kind of use as the paragraph. With this, I think I personally would only stick with 2 fonts, but you can play around and see what you think works good or works well. I do think I would probably like to keep this as a sans serif font, so I'm just going to try one out. And sometimes you try something out and it totally does not work anywhere near as well as you thought it was going to. That's not bad. I would probably even play around with it a little bit more. Maybe even bold it or something. So try it out. The fun thing about computers and the fact that it's graphic design, it's digital, no one has to know. You give it a try, see what it looks like. Maybe I want to make this really big. Oop, that's a little bit too big. Okay, I do like having it all left aligned though, so I'm going to leave it like that. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, we already have the picture, so I'm going to get rid of that. Ray gun magazine cover. General dates, time span of error. That's obviously not the error, but I'm just giving you an idea. Blah, 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 50 words. Obviously, don't do that. Try to come up with something interesting and informative. And let's see, art show for a graffiti artist. Trying to make sure that it's in a complete sentence, but I'm just trying to do this quickly for you guys. On the back, this is your color palette. So what you want to do here, that's not what I want to use. I'm going to use, excuse me, I actually just recently found this out and I thought this was really cool, the color theme tool. I picked this eyedropper and I just clicked anywhere on the poster and boom, it came up with all of these swatches, which again, I thought was awesome. And I believe when you do that, you can also add it into your swatches panel. So I can then create my palette simply, oops, I'm on my stroke, I apologize, simply by clicking these guys. Now, don't be afraid to kind of get interesting with this. You saw on the benchmarks, someone used for the psychedelic one. Here we go. Where is it? No, it's not in that one. It's in this one, I think. Yes, I do believe it's in this one. This person used circles, and that's absolutely 100% okay. Over here, they used a much more static kind of look, which actually it's very much more representative of this particular era, which is probably what the student was going for. Heroic realism. I almost get like kind of a sense of stability with this one, with, you know, the blocks. So you don't necessarily need to do just a bunch of lines. I actually would, not even that I would prefer you don't, but just maybe try something different with each of the individual cards. And there we go. I had one more slide that I think accidentally had gotten deleted in my show, because I wanted to make sure that I included a secret question for today, and we have about 2 minutes left. Okay. So, oh, and I do want to make sure that I mention, before you get too far into working on your assignment, make sure to save it, because I had not done so. And if I had just completed all 6 of my cards, front, back, front, back, front, back, and then my computer crashed, I would have been out of luck. Excuse me. So when you are saving it, make sure that you save it in the appropriate file name. It does not need to be a PDF while you are working on it. You can keep it as an InDesign file while you're working on it. Then just make sure that when you submit it to me, it is a PDF. Because when I actually look at it in the grade book, I cannot see the InDesign files. I can only see the PDF. So I want to make sure that I can actually grade your work. Okay, so very, very quick secret question for today. We had a celebrity unfortunately pass away. And I loved this guy. He was in a whole bunch of movies, but he was he was the creator of a comic book organization, mogul, whatever you want to call him. Barbara, any idea what the answer to that particular question might be? Who unfortunately passed away this week? I'm wearing a Wolverine t-shirt in his memory. Any idea? Very good, Barbara. I'm so proud of you. I am a big, huge geek, and I loved Stan Lee. And unfortunately, he passed away this week. I'm going to really miss all his cameos. So anybody watching this, shoot me a message. Let me know what your favorite comic book character is, your favorite well, maybe you're a DC fan instead of Marvel, or maybe you hate them in general. Just shoot me a message and let me know that you saw this. And I did not, unfortunately, get a chance to talk about the assessment thing, so I'll do a little bit tomorrow during the multi-session, and I'll record that and I'll shoot that out in the announcements so that everybody has a little bit of information on that as well. Barbara, do you have any questions for me? Anything at all? Oh, yep, you have one. Okay. Be my guest. You feel free to put the audio on if that's going to be easier for you, especially since we're the only ones in here today. Excuse me while I'm drinking. Just water, just water. Gonna save this real quick while I'm doing this. Oops. Just so I don't lose it. Does the image have to be created from scratch, or are we searching for pictures and finding the artist? That's a good question. Excuse me. You are actually going to be looking for something that is already has already been created, because this particular week we're talking about taking or learning about graphic design in history. So you're going to be finding something that has previously been created. You are going to have the chance to create something yourself in the coming weeks. So right now on this particular assignment, what you are going to be focusing on is the layout of the image with the text, you know, how you are aligning them, how you're placing them, your font choices, sizes, that kind of thing. Does that answer your question? Okay, great, thanks. Oh, perfect. All right, well, it looks like that's all for tonight. And tomorrow, Thursday the 15th, from 12:30 to 2:30 is the multi-session. I'll be in there, excuse me, making phone calls and shooting email messages and all sorts of other stuff. And I'll do a little brief thing on the just assessment tips that probably won't take too long. So thank you so much, Barbara, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it, and hope you all have a great night.